Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Venture Visionaries podcast. I'm your host, Fred Schonenberg. I am thrilled today to welcome a true trailblazer in dairy innovation, Bob Carroll, who is the newly appointed CEO of the California Milk Advisory Board. For the past 7 years, Bob has been the driving force behind the Real California Milk Accelerator, which is one of the most groundbreaking innovation programs in the dairy space. I've had the privilege of collaborating with Bob during this time, exchanging ideas on leadership and marketing, and diving deep into how to supercharge demand for real California dairy through innovation. Bob has a dynamic background, brand management, international business development, and he brings this rare blend of strategic insight and creative execution. And his leadership of the accelerator has not only elevated startups, but has reshaped the way we think about many dairy-based products. In this episode, Bob's going to pull back the curtain a little bit on the accelerator's evolution, what's new in this year's program, and some of the macro trends that are transforming dairy. So whether you're passionate about food innovation or curious about how legacy industries can stay ahead of the curve, you won't want to miss this conversation with Bob. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Fred. Super glad to be here.
So I am first, I know we've talked offline about this before, but a huge congratulations on your new role as the CEO of the California Milk Advisory Board.
Thank you.
What would you say is the biggest shift moving from all that you're doing on the business development side internationally and within the US to now stepping into that CEO role?
You know, leadership is leadership, Fred. And I've always seen it as people first and providing those right people, as Jim Collins would say, you know, the right people on the bus and then in the right seats on the bus. And you know, providing purpose, direction, and motivation. And I think the two big changes are really horizon and culture. So I think, you know, in my new role, I have a role as guardian of our organization's culture. And we're shifting focus just a little bit. We have a wonderful culture, wonderful group of people, and shifting focus toward our dairy farmers. And they're who fund us. You know, we're all about increasing demand, you know, with the end goal of improving the outlook for our California dairy industry and our farmers in particular. And you know, I would say so between you know, being guardian of the culture and that longer term horizon, I would say shifting the horizon out a little bit from, you know, our farmers think in generations. So I think, you know, it's super important that they can pass their farm on to the next generation, but we also have to be thinking long term, and that's been a shift as well, that the horizon.
I love that to kind of mirror the sort of thinking in generations and that longer term shift. It's one of the things when we talk about innovation with corporations is a huge challenge, right? Because they have the quarterly results, and that's everyone's got this short termism,
Yes.
And new and different takes a minute to get going. So I would love to maybe, before we get into the future of this, talk a little bit about the past. And John Talbot, who's the outgoing CEO, and he's been a guest on the show, and obviously you worked very closely with John. He helped spark the vision of the California Milk Accelerator 7 years back, and you and I have been working hand in hand on that, and it's been such a great ride. How can you maybe talk a little bit about the origins of the accelerator, why it came to be, for anybody that maybe has not heard that story, and why it's interesting?
Yeah, you know, California has the largest dairy industry. You know, we're the largest dairy producing state in the country, and it's kind of by the nature of how it's developed over the years, a very large scale production focused industry. And we started to see a lot of innovation in fluid milk to start, right? That was our starting point. And it was actually, you know, as we were showing some concepts of new products at a dairy farmer meeting, there was one of our dairy farmers said, "Hey, you know, it is hard to change things quickly. We thought about doing something like a Shark Tank sort of event." And John had met you just the same week. It was just, you know, it was like that wonderful accidental Hershey bar in the peanut butter moment. You know, it was perfect.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And I mean, I think what's interesting is how successful, you know, the California dairy industry is. Some of the stats that we've seen, you know, 21 billion annually, supporting 180,000 jobs. Like, it is a huge part of not only California, but the US economy. And I'm curious, what are there specific gaps or opportunity areas that you see or that you hope this program may uncover?
Yeah, I mean, dairy is having a moment for sure within the food industry, within culture. It's a combination of a bunch of factors that provide a lot of opportunities for innovation. And consumers are moving away from ultra processed food, and there's nothing more real and understandable and wholesome than milk and cream and the ingredients that make all the wonderful dairy products. So they are just sort of naturally moving back towards what's real, and moving away from ingredients they don't understand and can't pronounce. And so that provides a great opportunity. Protein is just on fire, as we know, and dairy is a wonderful source of complete proteins. Probiotics, you think about yogurt and the opportunity for consumers to naturally improve their immune systems and gut health. Reduce sugar is another big area. So lactose free is kind of how that translates to the dairy world, and that's on fire. It's growing dramatically. So there are a lot of opportunities. It's a big industry for sure. I think that California, being the largest dairy state, we have as much milk for innovation as anyone could possibly use.
Yeah, and it's amazing too that there are all these. I mean, I love that just the word "real" is in the name, right, of the Real California Milk Accelerator, because there is that resurgence of going back to things that are real and that you can pronounce in terms of ingredients, and then you have cottage cheese up 16%, yogurt up, right, and there's all these different factors that kind of create this renewed excitement for dairy, and it's really cool to be a part of it and seeing what's happening. And to your point, having the opportunity to work with this superfood as like the base of what innovators are going off to create is a really special part of the whole program.
Yeah, it is. If we look back, across innovation in the food and beverage industry, I would argue there's no better, more long-term base for innovation than milk. I mean, from thousands of years ago, when milk for cheese, for butter, for yogurt, for ice cream. I mean, those baseline innovations are a great story in and of themselves. And now on top of that, to see the innovation around increased protein, using the streams from production of these different products, like whey is a co-product of cheese making. And boy, it's a wonderful source of protein, complete protein. And so there's so much opportunity within the dairy space that I think it's a natural fit.
I think one of the things that you must feel is last week we did a just sort of an update on this year's program and companies that had already applied because we're very early in the window. Yeah. And we, as a group, the venture field team, the CMAB team, we're like, this is so cool. After 7 years of doing this, there's still things we haven't seen, right? There's new ideas, new names, new ways of using waste streams, of finding ways to increase the protein, new flavors. I'm curious, are there any startups, ideas, or trends that you're especially hoping to see or excited that might be in this year's program?
Yeah, for sure, Fred. I mean, I mentioned a bunch of the trends that are driving dairy growth now, and I think those are natural fits: protein, probiotics, lactose-free, reduced sugar, clean ingredients that are understandable by consumers. All of those things I am really excited to see. But there's also this element of nostalgia right now that's coming back. I think it is a great time to look at what's been done in the past and to leverage technology to, whether it's enhancing the products at more protein or whatever it is, to connect those dots of what I grew up with 4 to 5 gallons of milk in my fridge at all times, right? I had milk for every at every meal. It was my recovery beverage, and it's becoming a recovery beverage again. Consumers are rediscovering that milk is a wonderful source of hydration and recovery. The other thing I'd be really excited to see is connection back to our farmers. I think the stories of these family farms are so amazing and so inspiring that, for a new brand to be able to have the depth and richness of a generational family farm story is just powerful. And I think that combination of California dairy plus new innovative, exciting thinking about what, connecting with what consumers are looking for, it's a powerful combination.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think what's interesting is when you said recovery, right? I remember after basketball practice having a glass of milk, and that is becoming on trend at the moment. And we actually last year we piloted an incubator track, which this year we've formally expanded. I would love to talk about that, but the company that kind of blew me away out of that was essentially this idea of creating a recovery beverage. With dairy at its core, and it was delicious, right? And it was like great for a post workout. So it was a nice tie in there. I'm curious, what made you all formalize this incubator track, and how are you hoping to help support earlier stage startups in ways that maybe we haven't been able to in the past?
Yeah, the needs of a startup are very different if they're already in market versus if they're much earlier, even concept idea stage, and they haven't formulated their product yet, or they haven't really found a co-packer, that they haven't finalized their manufacturing plan, all of those details that are crucial. And I think one thing we've learned over the years is that one cohort, across that entire spectrum, it's a little harder to meet all their needs. And we've done a good job with it. But I think that having the incubator program for earlier stage innovation allows us to help them even more. It may be help around, like I mentioned, formulation. It could be making sure their ingredients and nutritionals are correct, and finding co-packers, versus those startups that are in market already. They've already done all that work, and the ways we can help them are closer to kind of the core of what we do, which is around marketing. So we can help with marketing support, also distribution growth, and providing expertise. We have a big team of folks that have done this. We've launched a lot of new products collectively and learned a lot of hard lessons, so we can share those different lessons across the different stages easier with these two different tracks.
It's funny, every year, one of the things that I don't think we still have captured the depth of is the experience of the CMAB team and Venture Fuel team together in terms of understanding how to launch a product, how to accelerate it, how to distribute it, and just the value that the founders get by sitting and talking to your team about, hey, watch out. This is the pothole you might face here. Or, who you should talk to is this person, whether that's connecting them to the co-packer or opening a door to a retailer, or just saying, hey, before you go so fast, you might want to get these two things in order, because it's truly, it's a game changer for the startups, whether they're at the acceleration stage or the incubation stage. Obviously different values there of things, but it's truly, your team is a delight to work with, but the value is so intense for founders.
Yeah, and that's been one of the most fun things, Fred, across the years with working with Venture Fuel, is just a partnership that we have. I think that the power of you and your team combined with the power of our team, we do have a lot to offer. We have a lot to offer to these startups across the spectrum of where they are in the process, and also the mentors that collectively and Venture Fuel's done a fantastic work bringing world-class mentors into the program to really help in specific areas. So whether that be earlier stage commercialization or later stage marketing, and across the whole spectrum, from compliance and co-packing to logistics, sales, distributors, marketing, and earlier stage product funding, a new company. There's just been a wonderful cadre of experts that we've been able to bring to the table to help, in addition to our two teams.
Are you a startup innovating in food and beverage or personal care that's using real dairy? The Real California Milk Accelerator is now accepting applications. Join one of the most successful dairy-focused innovation programs in the country. You can register and apply by August 4th, 2025 at realcamilkaccelerator.com. Accelerator is spelled with an EX because we want you to excel. Yeah, it's been so fun, and even we were kind of previewing where we are in the planning for this year. And for any founders listening, we do this like kickoff where we do retailer visits, we go to different processors, we go to dairy farms, we kind of do this like immersion into Real California Dairy, and like we're going to like the headquarters of Instacart to get a tour of what it's like to be a new brand. How do you get that distribution channel? The investors that are coming in, the list is pretty amazing. And so it's that which is maybe more on the external side, and then your guys' internal knowledge and how do you get this through to distribution. And it's just a really cool partnership. And for a founder, you can go to the website and look at the testimonials from the startups that have gone through this, and the value they get from that is really spectacular. One of the things I want to ask you about is this year's program has a multi-category sort of vibe to it, not just about cheese and ice cream, though. Of course, we want to see that, but there's everything from skincare to textiles to cottage cheese, all sorts of interesting innovations. What I would love to understand is, how are you thinking about it as the CEO of CMAB? There are all these different categories. How do you think that they combine to create a more powerful future for dairy?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it earlier, Fred, but the amount of innovation, just the breadth and depth of innovation across all these categories, starting with milk, which is, I would call it nature's perfect food. That there's so much opportunity, and it is hard to envision that there's untapped opportunity, after hundreds and hundreds of years of innovation, but there is. And I think the other piece of it is the co-product streams. We think about the greatest example is whey, coming off of the cheese making process, but there are so many others, and we're learning about, just the amazing opportunities to bring more value through all of those streams of products. And in some cases, I think that there's opportunity for even more value than the original product. Whey is such a great example, but we're learning about the milk fat globule membrane, which is a big term, but it's what holds the wonderful, wholesome, natural fats in milk together. And we're learning that this is wonderful for brain health and for memory. And there's just so much opportunity. We're looking at making, plastic type, silverware and things that, who would have thought of that out of a stream that was previously viewed as a waste stream, has opportunity to become to add more value. And there are untapped opportunities almost everywhere you look in the dairy industry.
100%. And I will say, what you said earlier in the episode about connecting innovation to nostalgia is such an interesting part of all of this, right? Because it is this superfood and like this perfect building block that can be innovated on and get into plastics and get into other things. But there's also something that is so wholesome and warm about dairy. And I have a 5-year-old. We went and shot hoops this weekend for 30 minutes outside. And then we went and got ice cream. And it was just this like beautiful moment of connection. And what was cool was it was vanilla ice cream, but they put sea salt in it, and it was just crazy delicious, right? But there was innovation there, but there was nostalgia. There's this generational thing that I just think is so special, and I think that's why so many founders are attracted to using it as their jumping off point. And what's neat about this program, so at this point we've had 60 startups go through the accelerator. The alumni are on every notable retail shelf I can think of. Petit Pot, who last year won the grand prize, I just saw a note that they're in over 6,000 stores, right? Generating millions in new revenue. how does this program help startups reach that kind of scale? Why is commercialization part of the core of how you think about this program?
At the very core, our mission at the California Milk Advisory Board is to increase demand for dairy products that use real California milk. And we have a lot of tools in our toolbox, a lot of resources to help brands, even aside from the accelerator, um, both commercialize and have early success in market. I think that it ranges from the relationships we have with retailers, the scale that we can bring to a platform like Instacart with the Real California Milk Seal as a unifying element across multiple dairy products. We can market at a scale that a startup never could. So, by having the seal, the Real California Milk Seal, it really brings credibility. It brings scale quickly when you wouldn't otherwise have it. And, it's the relationships as well. And the guidance along the way, it's sometimes an easy path to go down to expand too quickly. And we, can provide counsel and guidance on who we think are the right retailers, the right pace, if you will, of expansion based on the startup, the company, their funding. And, it's a combination of all those factors. But at the core of it, I would say it's marketing support, really, Fred. Like, we can provide a wonderful program built around the Real California Milk Seal that works for larger brands and certainly brings scale for smaller.
One of the things I was thinking about was this idea of a halo effect, that this program, and we've talked, you and I, before, about how the press loves to write about this. The media loves to connect the dots and talk about this story. I'm curious if you see innovation and this program, does it create a halo effect? Does it get retailers or others to think about California dairy in a different way and help drive that category growth you all look for?
It does. I mean, every retailer, every category manager at a retailer is looking for what's new and what's next. And they, oftentimes want to be first. They see a lot of new products though. And I think having, this behind them, if you will, the power of the accelerator, the power of the Real California Milk Seal provides credibility. It shows that, hey, it's not just, a founder or a couple folks on the founder's team that have done all this work. There's been consumer research behind it. There's insight, this is an insight-driven idea. There's the marketing support that comes with the Real California Milk Seal. It's all of those things together that I think provide some scale. And, and as far as the excitement side, it's the founder stories are naturally press-worthy. They're people want to learn and read about it. I think there's a little bit of an entrepreneur in each of us, and we love to see the small guy making it big, as part of the fabric of our economy, our country, that there are opportunities if you work hard, if you have a good idea and you're diligent. And so I think that combination, plus, like I mentioned, the stories of the dairy farmers, these multi-generation farms and the wonderful stewards they are of the land and their resources. And it provides a combination that people want to read about, they want to learn about, or watch videos about, I guess, now.
Yeah, no doubt. And it resonates with everyone, from the press to the retailers to the entrepreneur within each of us. It's really powerful. One of the things you spoke to briefly that I would love to maybe go in more detail is, this year, one of the things we doubled down on is focusing on the Real California Milk Seal, that to be eligible for the grand prize, that the startups need to have this. And to me, you just answered why it is so valuable. But it is this, I've witnessed it, this sort of check mark in both retailers' mindsets as well as consumers, that this is the real deal. This is milk from California. The cows are happier. It meets all these standards. Can you talk about the power of the seal and how it helps build credibility and consumer trust?
Yeah, absolutely. It stands for, in consumers' minds, the seal stands for quality, for trust. Um, I think that element of trust is absolutely crucial. And, it does provide like, hey, this might be a new brand I haven't heard of, but I know that Real California Milk seal, and it's on all the dairy products I love, out here in California, from milk to ice cream, as you mentioned, butter, yogurts, and it provides credibility and trust for consumers for a brand that might be new to them, probably is new to them, and they're more willing to give it a try. I think, that is some of the value that's inherent for a new product. I would say more broadly, this idea that California does lead the nation in sustainable dairy. Our farmers and farmers across the country, as I mentioned earlier, they do think in generational terms. They're stewards of the land. They're stewards of the cows. They take care of their cows. They take care of the land for the next generation. California has, a bunch of extra regulatory requirements that really have propelled us to the lead in the area of sustainability. So the seal also stands for that in consumers' minds. They know that, um, we're, as an industry, doing an awful lot to um, make sure that this is generationally sustainable on farm and off farm. That these farms are going to be around, that we're working very diligently on both emissions and, you know, energy and water usage. I mean, really being great stewards of all those precious resources.
Yeah, I think there's so many things about this program that have been an honor to be a part of. One of the great joys that I was not exposed to before the program is that kickoff where we would do dairy tours, where we would go and actually get on the farm and meet with the farmers and see the cows and tour the land, and the degree to which they are thinking generationally, that they are obsessed is probably too strong a word, but obsessed with the animal's well-being, how the land is taken care of, sustainability. Like it is so authentic and real and lovely, and it's something that it made a huge impact on me 7 years ago and continues to be there. And I think one of the things about the seal is that it is a symbol of that. At least when I look at it, that I know that this is the real deal. I would love to end on this. For anyone listening, whether you're a startup founder or a dairy buyer or a potential partner, we would love to have you involved with the Real California Milk Accelerator. Just go to our website, which is www.realcamilkaccelerator.com. Accelerator is spelled with an EX at the front, or you can just Google Real California Milk Accelerator and it will pop up. Applications are open until August 4th, 2025. We've had over 60 startups go through this program. We have hundreds of mentors, judges, and advisors, ranging from the largest retailers down to local regional stores. It is one of the best programs in the country, and we would love to have you be a part of it. Again, just go to realcaliforniamilkaccelerator.com. Bob, thank you for all that you're doing to spark change for the industry. This is one of the most exciting programs. I always love it because I get to eat some delicious dairy, and thank you for your partnership over the years. I can't wait for this year's program.
And thank you as well, Fred. We love our partnership. We're grateful to Venture Fuel and to all the founders who really are willing to take a step in this direction. And we encourage you to sign up.
Thanks so much.